words of Barack Obama in October of 2002, how prescient they were, how predictive they were of the mess, of the dumb war that George W. Bush and his henchmen got us into. Now let me say a few things from a personal viewpoint about this. I served in the last war like that the United States fought, and I served in it in 1971 when it was winding down. I had Marines from all across the country with me. We served with South Vietnamese militia. We were told that we were part of the Vietnamization program. We used to joke in Vietnam that unfortunately the North Vietnamese thought that meant them. Ha ha ha. But the point is, we had at that time a dishonest Republican president named Richard M. Nixon, who came into office with a so-called promise to end the war, a secret plan to end the war. He kept his plan about ending the war just about as secret as George W. Bush is managing to keep his plan about drawing down American forces in Iraq. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a very, very easy thing to hide behind the promise of victory when you don't have a clue of how to extricate yourself from a path that simply is not working. It is not a matter of courage to stay in a war when the war is not working. It is a matter of sacrifice. And this administration seems to find no problem at all asking for the sacrifice of principally our young people, but ladies and gentlemen, not only our young people, of people in the National Guard, of families, men and women who serve in Iraq, and they serve not just one tour, but 2 tours, and 3 tours, and 4 tours. I know Marines who are going back on their 5th tour in Iraq. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is simply unacceptable. It is a reflection of the fact that the Bush White House is run by a bunch of chicken hawks who like to talk patriotism and war, but in fact, who never served a minute of their own time. And it's not to say that someone needs to have served in order to be president. It's to say that if one has served, one might know a few things that one who hasn't served would inquire about. Barack Obama does that. George W. Bush famously does not. It is time for us to have in office somebody who understands that when one asks sacrifice of young and older American men and women, one must have a strategy and a plan and undertake it sensibly and undertake it responsibly. And that, ladies and gentlemen, emphatically is not happening today. Now, Barack Obama did not end his opposition to this war with that speech in 2002. He addressed the Chicago Foreign Relations Institute again in 2005, and he raised many of the same issues in 2005. What he said in that particular speech was that the United States needed to have a clear strategy that had the following components. First, a reduction in the number of U.S. troops. Secondly, a time frame for a phased withdrawal. Thirdly, the Iraqi government make progress on forming a political solution. Fourth, improve construction efforts to restore basic services in Iraq. And 5, engage the international community, particularly key neighboring states and Arab nations, to become more involved. In January of 2006, he traveled to Iraq and met with senior U.S. military commanders, Iraqi officials, and U.S. troops in Baghdad and Fallujah. He introduced legislation in 2007 to try to do some of the things he talked about. Interestingly, the Iraq study group that was formed on a bipartisan basis by Congress with the then approval of the administration came to many of those same conclusions. The efforts of the Iraq study group are completely ignored by the White House today. In fact, in spite of the suggestion by Congress that Iraq study group be commissioned to continue its work under the present scenario, the White House refused to propose funding of that same group. Barack Obama continued to oppose the